Hello again, my friends, and welcome back to another fine episode of Carpo's Rambles. It's not quite the 15-minute free thinking podcast, but whenever I say that, it ends up being a really long video, so I guess we'll see. Depends on the topics at hand and how motivated I feel. It's my it's my son's birthday today. He's 15, and him and his mom are at the mall right now. And it's funny because he went the other day and she took him to the mall, took him and our youngest shopping for school clothes and stuff, and it's the first time they'd ever been there. Yes, they're, basically 12 and 15, and they've never been to the mall until a couple weeks ago, and they were just taken back. Kind of like my wife said, they had this attitude of, why have you never taken us here before? In amazement at all the options. And we're not mall people, we're not big shoppers. We don't see any need to spend ridiculous amounts on things when we could get them cheaper. Although I do choose to buy things like his gifts I bought locally at a music store because I prefer to support a local business if I can. Anyway, while they're gone, I thought I'd make this quick video, which never is quick, and answer a few questions, discuss a few of the topics that my subscribers have actually recommended. And I did mention, I believe in my last video, one of them, that to give me ideas, if any of you have ideas you want to hear. And so there were three different ideas on this on the video I left that subscribers wanted to hear about, and I thought two of them are very connected, and I don't believe that was purposeful. And it was Blessed Man OU812, my subscriber for a very long time and has been with me since way back, asked me if I could talk about near-death experiences. And I just thought that's kind of, synchronous, if you will, because it's something I've been wanting to talk about lately, but I'm still putting together my thoughts on this because I have to use caution when I'm talking about psychedelics, things like that, because I want to be responsible, not put any ideas in people's heads, but also know what I'm talking about because it's a very complex issue, and near-death experiences are very... I've never had one myself, but I've had, similar experiences in the way that it triggers kind of a flood of information. So, and the other question I got was, from Dave Coors. He asked, he mentioned talking about Carl Jung's Red Book, which I only became aware of, in the last year or so. I mean, I knew Carl Jung was a little out there, but hadn't really done my homework on him until the last year or so. And funny enough, the Red Book and a lot of Carl Jung's work, it deals with these synchronicities, these coincidences, and also has a lot to do with near-death experiences and the places our brain goes. And so I gotta say, first off, I don't really have a lot to say about the Red Book, although I have listened to it. So for those who don't know, Carl Jung wrote this book that he didn't even want published at all, and don't recall the specific details, but until well after his death, it was never shared with anyone. And it was only put into print just a few years ago. I don't know if it was like 10 years ago or 15, but rather recently that it finally became available to buy for the general public. Now, I listened to the audiobook version with my headphones and my eyes closed, and I was just taken back by the strangeness of it. It's written like a biblical text, and it's about Carl Jung's experiences. It's almost like laying out archetypes. And if you're not familiar with Joseph Campbell, I'd urge you to check out his work because, he spoke a lot about how cultures have developed, and we've all in our own time developed these needs for these archetypes and these allegories, these stories about who we are, and different gods to represent different aspects of the human mind. But most cultures agree that there's something greater than just being a human, that there's a greater service and reason that we're here. It's unfortunate we've lost that. And I think it's because people are so afraid of believing in something because they've been let down so much. In other words, like a person who has believed something for a very long time and it turns out not to be true. Once you feel let down, you're likely to put up your guard. It's just like distrusting people after you've been ripped off or mugged. You know, a person could go along this whole lifetime and think, oh, this is a great world, society's fine, what do you mean? And then the minute they walk around the wrong corner in their own town and get mugged, all of a sudden it's a scary place. You know, perspectives change, but also perspectives vary, you know. And so anyway, that was off topic, but getting back to the point there, we've had such a false image for so long, whether it's state mandated or religious or otherwise, of how the world works, that now we've kind of lost belief in anything. Folks are just kind of doing their own thing and don't really care about the details anymore, and don't want to know where we come from, don't have any interest in reading ancient texts. There's a small subset of humans that do. Some people want to go out and check these things out, but I would say a person would have to listen to the Red Book, but the reason I had to bring that one up, of course, or read it yourself, whichever you prefer. But the fact that when we talk about a near-death experience, I mean, these are very difficult things for people to prove or disprove, and we know that the brain dies, is basically, you know, oxygen deprived for a period of time, yet these people have these profound experiences where they are more lucid than lucid, you know. And that to me is something that's very hard to wrap my head around and understand. Now, I understand things like DMT. Dimethyltryptamine is considered to be very, you know, very similar to a near-death experience in some people's eyes. I don't believe it is. I think that they're very different. One is a lucid experience, the other is a drug-induced experience, which is, let's just say, it's something that's beyond words, and you, on certain substances in large doses, it's almost like you can achieve a state of out-of-body experience. And as to how close a near-death experience and an out-of-body experience really are, or, you know, I'm sure that it's kind of a crossover thing, right? You know, you can die and have an experience, but if you leave your body, then that's technically an out-of-body experience, of course, if you're brought back to life, which is the only way you can tell the story. And that's one of the tough things, is that you can tell a lot of the stories are bullshit, and it always confuses the issue, confounds it, makes it even harder to know what's real and what's true. And I don't think it really matters what's real and what's true. I think really it just all comes down to, for each person, choosing to believe or not believe, you know, whatever's in their own heart, if you will. I mean, I don't know what to believe. You know, funny enough, when you're speaking of not Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, they were friends, but they had completely opposing views. And Sigmund Freud kind of wrote off Carl Jung as a batshit crazy because he had his, you know, metaphysical beliefs as well. But as for talking about belief and what we believe, it doesn't really matter. But Carl Jung was once asked, you know, do you believe in God? And he said, I do not believe, I know. There's more to it, but it's a perfect answer. Belief is, you know, thinking something to be true without any evidence for it, or insufficient evidence. I think convincing ourselves that there's something greater that doesn't need explanation helps us to understand that there may be some sort of an, let's just say that there's far too much information out there and far too many experiences for me to believe that out of body experiences don't exist, that people have not left their bodies. And as to how it happens, I don't know. I realize we have our vision when we're out of body, otherwise we wouldn't be able to report back, seeing things in the room or the next room. But funny enough, all vision is just information translated by the eyes. The eyes send it back to the optic nerve, and then it heads to our brain, and then our brain descrambles it and says, this is what we're seeing. It's a weird thing, being a human, right? Anyway, there was one other question. Even though, I couldn't really say much about out-of-body experiences other than I believe that they're probably a real phenomenon. I've had what I consider to be one, but I'll have to share back on that one another time. And the final question was from somebody, it was years something 3, I don't recall, a subscriber I don't recognize, but he or she, probably he, because my audience is like 90% male, said that he's asked how I make decisions without regretting the decision I make. In other words, he basically said, how do you go about making a decision then not regretting later that you made the wrong one? He said he's 25 years old and he's, worried that he makes the wrong decision on certain things. So I thought about this for a minute, and at first I was like, that's an odd question, like I've never really thought about it, I guess. And then I thought, okay, well, I'll just say, really just go with it, make a decision and just go with it. But then the more I thought about it, the more I realized how indecisive I am in my own life. Like, when I go to the weed store, I have to just say, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, kind of, basically I always take the one on the right or the one on the left, whichever it is in my head. I'm like, I'm just going to get something. I'm going to decide between two types, because there's 100 different types in there, right? Even just going to the beer section at the store, going to buy some yogurt, going to buy some, protein shake. I could spend a half an hour in the health food store, do I want this one, weighing the options and the costs. And, but it's even worse when I'm out, with my family, and I can't decide with my wife, where should we go? What should we do? Stop and not know which way to, and sometimes you just got to make a decision and go for it. But once I do make that decision, it's over. I don't fret about what could have been. And I think maybe that's something that just has to be practiced. Whatever decision you make, just think of it this way. You don't make wrong decisions in life. You make uninformed decisions, usually. And when you make an uninformed decision, by that experience of being wrong, it informs you. And the next time you make a decision regarding that, you'll have a better, arsenal to draw on, so to speak, of, what you, the things that you can use to not make those mistakes in the first place. But if it depends on if they're a mistake. Sometimes we make a decision and think we could have done something different, but would it have been better? I think that's the other most crucial thing, I think, to consider, is that just because we think another decision would have been better doesn't mean it would have. Maybe we take a wrong turn and end up getting stuck in traffic, but if we'd gone the other way, we might have been in an accident. We just don't know. We just don't know. And I like to think that fate's on my side. I like to think that I'm being, tapping into something sometimes when I avoid pitfalls by making the right decision, even when it might not be the decision I want to make. So I guess what I'm saying is, just make the best decision you can and go with it. Don't worry about it later. Just use it to better yourself and improve your decision making in the future, because that's all we can really do. You can't teach people how to not make bad decisions, right? Because every decision's different, every person's unique. It's just like parents always try to teach our kids, don't do that, don't touch a hot stove. I don't know anybody on earth who hasn't probably touched a hot stove at least once or stuck something in an electric socket. I mean, when we were kids, we did it all. um, Anyhow, you learn by experience, right? So with that, I guess I'm gonna head out now. I'm gonna get in there, and my wife and son should be back soon, and we'll go do his birthday. And so I just wanted to say happy Tuesday to y'all. I'll talk to you next time. Peace out.